Starting with our Week 2 evaluation, we'll begin with going over how to create electronic gradebook categories and items. So as you can see right now, we're on the home page of our D2L pilot class. If you look in our top menu bar, around in the middle, you'll see grades. That's where we're going to want to go. So we'll go ahead and click on that. And the first time you open this up, it'll probably start you in the setup wizard section. We want to make sure we're in the manage grades section. So from here, you can see I added in essays, added in the essays category and an essay item, and we'll go through how to do these. So what we'll want to do is click on the blue new button, and the first thing we want to create is a category. So I already created a category for essays, so maybe I want to create one for quizzes. So I'll go ahead and just type quizzes. Again, this is kind of like, think of it almost like a file that's going to contain all your quizzes grades, okay? So we're just going to go ahead and name that quizzes. We don't need to name it anything fancy. You can add in a short name if you want to, just an abbreviated version, but quizzes is pretty short as it is, so I think we can leave that alone. And after that, you have a few additional options that you can select. So first, can't exceed. This is if you want grades for your quizzes to be able to exceed the maximum amount of points you're going to assign for these assignments. So essentially is for a semester, if you're going to have all your quizzes worth 100 points, if you select this, then a student might potentially be able to earn 105 points, let's say if they earn like bonus or something like that. So if you want them to be able to exceed the total amount, you would go ahead and click this box. Any points that they do go over on the maximum, if you want those to be able to be calculated for the student's final grade, you would select this box right here. And then for distribution, this is very useful if you are creating a bunch of assignments that you plan on being worth the same amount of points. So if you're having students complete quizzes for your class, and you plan for all those quizzes to be worth, let's say, 20 points, what you can do is select distribute points across all items, and then change the point total here. And then if there's something in your class where you say the quiz that you get the highest score on will not be counted, or the quiz you get the lowest score on won't be counted towards your highest grade, you can edit that here. So if I want to say your lowest test score won't count for your final grade, I'll put a 1 in here, and this will kind of automatically just get rid of their lowest quiz score when it comes time to put in their final. And the only other thing we have left is restrictions. Restrictions are very useful in that if you don't want a category to appear for a student until a certain date, then selecting like a start time is a very, very beneficial thing. And if you want the categories to close after a certain amount of time, then selecting an end date is also good. But for the most part, in the general teaching setting, this might not be absolutely necessary. In a lot of cases, it's good just to have your grades posted way ahead of time so students can kind of get an understanding of what to expect throughout their coursework. All right, so we'll go back to properties, and we have two options really down below. We can save and close if we would like to just be done creating this category here, or we can click save and new. If we click save and new, it will save everything we just did and create the category, but then it'll also open up essentially a new page here where we can create a second new category. But for our purposes right now, we'll just click save and close. And as you can see, right here in the middle, underneath our essays, we have quizzes, okay? And we go ahead and click this. If we wanted this little arrow, what we could do is edit this if we wanted to enter grades, so on and so forth. What we want to do right now is we want to create an item. So this would be like the individual grade. So we just created the folder that our quiz assignments are going to go into. Now we actually want to start creating those quiz assignments. When you first click this, you're going to have a bunch of options pop up for how you want to calculate a student's grades. I think most teachers would select numerical, as in you're assigning a total amount of points based off how a student scores. Though there are certainly classes out there where you might select pass fail or select box to assign letter grades, or you might have a specific type of formula that will determine what grade students get. But for our purposes, we'll just do numerical for right now. And this, you'll start to notice this is very similar to how it was when we were setting up our categories. So I'll just type quiz 1 for our first one. Below that, we can shorten a name. We have this option with categories, but it's not really necessary to shorten it for categories. But maybe when you're grading, you might want to look at a shortened version. So you could put Q1 there. This stands for quiz 1. And then below that, we have our category. So we already have our quizzes set up for the category we want. So we'll go ahead and select that. But it's also important to note, if you haven't set up your categories yet, you can select new category here, and you can set up a new category right when you're creating your item. So maybe can't think of maybe there was a presentation students were doing, and they have to do multiple presentations throughout the course. You forgot to set up that category ahead of time while you're putting in the first grade for it. This would be a great option. It has most of the same options you have. Can exceed the grade, you can name it, so on and so forth. We don't actually want to create one, but that's a good quick option, and obviously you can go back and edit that if there's any additional changes you want to make. Grading, we already have the maximum points set from when we set up the category. Again, if you want to students to be able to exceed the point total, we would click here. Exclude from final grade of the calculation. If they can score above the maximum, do we want those points above the maximum to count towards their final grade? That all looks good. We also have restrictions. These restrictions are the same as what we had set up in the category section. And then we have an objective section. So if you have objectives set up ahead of time, or your association has objectives set up that you want students to accomplish, you could be tie those objectives to your quizzes right here. All right, and that should be everything that we need to cover for creating categories and items in the gradebook.